Very boil, ready to die. And to that, the lock in the Mishkan was a dash. Anything similar to what's done in the Mishkan is equally prohibited. Dash was in the Mishkan. Anything similar with comes up to the product, extracting, squeezing olives, squeezing grapes. You're extracting, getting out the liquid that's contained inside the fruit. We define the malacha methodic as when you have two separate items, one contained inside the other and extracting one from the other. So the question is, what about opening nuts, opening pistachios, peeling an orange? Why isn't that called methodic? We know this issue of bayit, of separate, you can't separate on Shabbos. Why isn't that called methodic? Why isn't that called extracting one thing from the other? The definition of methodic is we have two separate items, one contained inside the other, and extracting one from the other. So why isn't it an issue with peeling an orange? We know you could peel an orange if you're going to be eating right away. But it's not, huh?
It's because you would never want to peel the grape or olive, like you could eat them or like squeeze.
Because the grapes you could eat to peel? But that's
Like,
the opposite. You're saying because the grapes you do want to peel? Thank you very
No,
much.
like you want the grape and the grape juice or the olive and the olive oil. But like the orange, you would never want the peel or like
so
the shell of pistachio.
No, I think that's no, no, you're on the. I'm not okay. No, it's not what it is, but I'm not sure. I would need more time one-on-one to figure out why you're saying that because
Okay.
I'm not sure where you're coming from a different angle.
Okay.
So, well, eventually we learn about the malachas bladed. Let me explain it to everyone. If you need more time afterwards, I'll explain it to you because you're going on a different whatever. There's a malacha bladed separating. Two items mixed together, you can separate. You can only separate if you're going to be eating it right away. You can't take bad from good. You don't take good from bad. There's exceptions to the rule. Let's say an orange, you could take the peel, even though it's bad from good, because that's the only way to get to the fruit. That's another topic we didn't get to yet. But what I'm explaining here is the malacha methodic extracting is the definition of methodic is when you have two items, one inside the other, two different items, and one is trapped, one is contained inside the other, and you take out one from the other. That's the definition of methodic. I'm explaining that this does not apply to walnuts, doesn't apply to pistachios, it doesn't apply to oranges, doesn't apply to mangoes, even though it's one item contained inside the other. Question is why? So, one explanation is that the malacha methodic is when you're doing it to store it. You're doing it mass production, and the purpose is to store it. As opposed to oranges, let's say, you peel an orange because we peel like tons of oranges, then we store it away like we should have for the next 6 months. No. With wheat, that's the way it's done. With walnuts, there's the outer shell that we do it that way. When you buy walnuts in the store, that's not how it grows on a tree. There's an outer shell that grows on the walnut that is removed. That is done mass production. So the outer shell that's in the walnut that you never get to see usually, that is prohibited to be removed on Shabbos. That is in the category of methodic of extracting. So that's why oranges is not methodic. Walnuts, the way we get it, is not methodic. Pistachios is not methodic because it's not something that's done a lot of the time to store. Even though in some places they do sell separately, they do peel for you, but it's not, the intention is not like this, it's not the same as it's done like with walnuts when they remove the outer shell, which is mass production, and that's how it's sold. Pistachios, it's sold with shells, without shells. So it's not like this is how it's done. So that's why there's no issue of methodic extracting like pistachios, or oranges, or walnuts. It doesn't mean you're allowed to do it. There's the malachas of separating, which we'll get to, which there's conditions which sometimes you could, sometimes you can't. But it's not like mephatic. The mephatic is totally prohibited. Some want to explain that the reason why there's no issue of mephatic by orange, because the peel is so thin, so it becomes it's stuck to the fruit. It's sort of nullified to the fruit. It becomes like one thing with the fruit. And the definition of extracting is when you have two separate items. In other words, it's viewed as two items, and one is contained inside the other. So because it's stuck together, it's not viewed as two separate items in terms of the melacha of extracting. In terms of separating, it is, because separating is not necessarily with two separate items, even though it does have to be by the two separate items. But the melacha of separating is even when, let's say, watermelon, taking out the pits from the watermelon, it's two separate items, like pits inside the watermelon, it's one thing. But the idea of separating the bad from the good, even though it's not necessarily viewed per se two separate items. We spoke about milking a cow on Shabbos and Yom Tov. We said that that's the malacha of mephatic, of extracting. Why? Because it's two separate items. You have milk that's contained inside the cow, and you're extracting the milk from the cow. So it's two separate items. Why is it considered two separate items? Well, you could say because one is solid, one is liquid. That's not the reason that's brought. I mean, as I'm talking now, I'm thinking, why? I'm not sure. But the reason that it's brought is because the cow was viewed as food, because you could eat a cow. You shaft it, you could cook it, yeah. And no, I'm sorry. No. Let's back up. A second. I think I went over that. Maybe just a second. Sorry. Biblically, the prohibition biblically, sorry, correcting myself. Biblically, the prohibition is because you're extracting liquid from solid, right? It does bring that food. Okay? Rabbinically it works differently. That's what it was. According to the Torah, it's viewed as liquid inside solid, so it's extracting. Rabbinically, that's not the issue. Now, according to the Torah, it would come out. Oh, this one is. According to the Torah, you would be allowed to milk it into food. You'll be allowed to milk it inside food, just like you're allowed to squeeze a lemon into a salad, because the liquid becomes like solid food. So it's not extracting liquid from solid. When you're squeezing a lemon into a salad, now the juice of the lemon is not viewed as juice, it's viewed as solid food. So you're not extracting liquid from solid. The lemon juice becomes like solid food because it's giving a taste into solid food. That's the reason why you're allowed. Let me just finish this point. Which means that you're allowed to milk on Shabbos a cow if you milk the cow directly into food, according to the Torah. Now, here where it comes rabbinically, where I started going off the other direction. Now, rabbinically, this is still going to be a problem. You're still not allowed to do this, to milk it directly into the food, because it's still considered like two separate items. Because the milk is food, and the cow is not food. But the cow is food. You could shack it, you could eat it, but you can't shack on Shabbos. So on Shabbos, it's considered like waste. In contrast to the milk, it's like waste. So you have two separate items. It's like, so rabbinically, in other words, on a practical level, you still can't milk a cow directly into the food, because even though the milk now becomes like solid food, by extracting food from waste. So it's two separate items, food trapped into waste. In other words, in contrast It's a funny term to use on a cow, waste, but it's in context, in contrast to the liquid, which is food. The cow, which you can't eat on Shabbos because you can't shecht on Shabbos, is considered waste. So it's still an issue to milk a cow even into food. So as we said yesterday, you asked a non-Jew to do it, and I'm going to discuss some details how it's done. Yeah, you have a question.
Well, is it anything you just leave it like a lemon peel with waste?
11 peel is waste. Okay, you're squeezing the. What is it? Who cares about the lemon? How's lemon peel come to the picture? We're discussing the liquid.
The liquid into the salad,
Yeah.
then the lemon peel, now you lemon half, you're feeding it. That becomes the waste, you're using the juice to put into it. It's the remainder of the lemon.
Oh, so you want? I get it. Okay. Question is being asked, if squeezing the lemon into salad, you're still extracting liquid from waste because the peel is waste. The difference is that when you're squeezing a lemon, there is still the fruit itself that's there. And the fruit is edible. You're not squeezing out the whole lemon, just the juice. So it's the juice coming out of the solid fruit, which, by the way, biblically is not viewed as liquid. It's only rabbinically it's viewed as liquid and solid foods. But bottom line is, the lemon is viewed as solid food that contains liquid inside. Practically, that's how we view it. So extracting liquid from solid. Got it? So we have to ask a non-Jew to milk a cow. Now, when you ask a non-Jew, we can discuss some details how it's, I know it's not so practical, but we could discuss it if you want to. Yeah. How do you do it with a non-Jew? You're allowed to tell a non-Jew to do it. And the reason is, even though usually we don't tell non-Jews to do things in Shabbos, with exceptions to the rule, but being that the animal is in pain, so we're allowed to tell a non-Jew to milk the cow. However, we want to minimize the transgression. What do you mean the transgression? It's allowed. It's allowed, but originally it's prohibited. So we're allowing you to do it, but we want to minimize the severity of this transgression, which generally you're not allowed to ask a non-Jew to do work here on Shabbos. How do we minimize it? By creating a situation that the non-Jew, that the guy is not doing it for you, the guy is doing it for himself. Because when he does it for you, that's like a first-class prohibition of having a non-Jew work for you. That's called shlichus. It's such a concept of shliach. And when someone does something for you, it's like you yourself are doing it. So rabbinically, when a non-Jew works you, it's like you are doing it on Shabbos yourself, rabbinically. We want to minimize that. How do we avoid that situation? We create a situation where the non-Jew is doing it for himself. He's not doing it for you. So yes, you're telling him to do it, which generally is still not permitted, but he's doing it for himself. How is he doing it for himself? Anybody? You tell the non-Jew that, you know what, you can keep the milk. You can have the milk.
All of it?
Yeah. You let it, yeah, because he's doing it otherwise, yeah. Why are we allowed to tell the non-Jew to milk the cow? Do that because animals in pain. Animals in pain, so we allow you. But tell the non-Jew you could keep the milk, it's your milk. Then after Shabbos, you could buy it back from him. It doesn't have to be full price. You can pay him a few dollars. The non-Jew is willing to sell back to you. It's good enough because the point is officially he milked the milk for himself. So he didn't do it for you, he did it for himself. And so it's not considered shlichus where the non-Jew is working for you. If you have a non-Jew that's his job, he's paid for the whole year, all year round, that's what he does, then there's no problem because he's doing it for himself. This is a job, he's getting paid, and it's also not a problem. Now, in terms of the milk on Shabbos, the milk that is milked on Shabbos is muktzeh. Why is it muktzeh? Because you're not allowed to drink it. How can we not allow to drink it? We spoke about that juice that comes out from fruits on Shabbos. Oh, we didn't speak about it. We spoke about fruits that fall off a tree. Oh, there's another halacha that let's say you have grapes and olive, and the juice, it's so full of juice that the juice comes out on its own. You're not allowed to use that juice because there's a concern you might come to squeeze it on Shabbos. The same thing is also with milk. Milk that was milked on Shabbos, the non-Jew milk that we didn't transgress, but it's like it came out on its own. In terms, in respect to you, you didn't do it. Someone else did it, right? So just like if juice comes out from fruits and Shabbos on its own, you can't drink it. So milk, a cow that was milked on Shabbos, the same thing also, you cannot drink that milk. That milk is prohibited on Shabbos. It's a concern, you might come to look at yourself. Being that you can't drink it, it becomes muktzah. You can't move that milk. Now, other halachas I want to discuss in regards to the malacha of nephatic extracting. There is also provisions that are rabbinically prohibited. So we spoke about a rag material to squeeze out the liquids from material from a rag. That is included in the provision of nephatic of extracting. You take the rag and you squeeze out the liquid because the liquid is absorbed inside the rag, it's in the material, and you're squeezing out the liquids from the material. It's not prohibited biblically because you're not interested in the liquid that's coming out when you're wiping up the spill, but rabbinically it's still prohibited because factually you are extracting liquid that's absorbed inside material. So if you have a rag that you're wiping up a spill, you have to be careful. If it gets saturated and you keep on pressing it, keep on pushing it, you're going to be squeezing out liquid from the material. So we have also a situation that's prohibited rabbinically, and that is, for example, steel wool and hair. Steel wool and hair have a similarity that they trap liquid, they trap water inside. When you use, someone's going to use steel wool on Shabbos, you're not allowed. What's the reason? Because if you're using steel wool and it's full of water, and you're pressing against the pot, you're scrubbing the pot, what's happening is you are squeezing out liquid water from the steel. Now, it's not like a rag, it's not like a material because the steel doesn't actually absorb water inside the steel. Material absorbs water inside. Steel wool doesn't absorb. Could steel absorb water? So they tell you the steel is absorbing water. Does that make sense? I tell you steel absorbs water. But what it does is it traps water. There is water inside the steel, but it's not absorbed inside. Steel is like what is it made out of? Whatever it's made of. That material can't absorb. But it traps water inside. You get it?
I don't understand
No.
what this thing is.
Steel. Is it downstairs by the kitchen sink still? No, they don't wash outside of it. The same,
Oh, okay.
right? Get it?
Yeah.
Everyone get what steel is? Right? So it doesn't absorb water inside the material. It can't absorb. But it traps, it keeps water in there. Maybe here you relate to better. Here, so right, they don't take showers in Shabbos. That's one of the reasons. When your hair is soaked, is your hair absorbing water? Does your hair absorb water? You're going to say yes because it's wet, it's soaked. But yes and no, meaning the hair doesn't actually absorb water. Get it? Hair is very thin, bunch of thin strands. Right. Does the water get absorbed inside the strand in hair? No, because there's so much hair together, so now it holds water inside. So that's called it's trapping water inside. So to squeeze out, let's say if someone went to the mikveh on Shabbos, right? And they take a towel and they scrub their hair, what they're doing is they're taking out water from the hair. but they're not really squeezing out the water from the hair, but they are, because the water is trapped in between the strands of hair. And rabbinically, that's considered nephrotic extracting. You are extracting, you're squeezing out the water from the hair. Get it? Oh, sorry. So rabbinically, it's prohibited to use steel wool. Rabbinically, it's prohibited if someone goes to the mikveh on Shabbos to scrub their hair with a towel, because if you take a towel and put it over your head and your hair and you go like this, you are taking water out of your hair. Rabbinically, you are extracting water from your hair. That is prohibited. That is one of the reasons why we don't take showers on Shabbos. Well, it starts with hot showers. You familiar with this? There's a prohibition against taking hot showers on Shabbos. Some prohibited hot showers, because back in the days we had public bathhouses. The attendants who took care of the bathhouses weren't careful with the laws of Shabbos. They were doing something that was close to cooking at Shabbos, not exactly, but not going into all the details. So they prohibited hot showers on Shabbos. That means even if the water was cooked on Shabbos, and you're not cooking on Shabbos, you still cannot take hot showers on Shabbos. These days, for sure you can't take hot showers, because when you open the tap and hot water comes out, what's happening is, anyone, what's happening? What? You're causing the pressure. Water, how does water come up? With pressure. Automatically, adding hot water, you're pushing cold water into the hot water tank, the boiler that's holding the hot water, and now you're causing cold water to cook. So you're doing bishul, causing cooking. So these days, for sure, you can't take a hot shower because of the way the hot system is. But even if you have, in some places, they have a system, I think in Eretz Yisrael, remember hearing they have a system that they have a hot water tank on the roof somewhere, and when they use the hot water, they're not transgressing. It's like when you take hot water to make a coffee, you have a huge thing of hot water, and you're using hot water, you're not doing any cooking. And they're allowed to use it for dishes. They can wash dishes on Shabbos. But a hot shower is still prohibited, because that our sages prohibited. But then, so why can you take a cold shower? Cold shower, you're not doing anything. You're not. What's the transgression with the cold shower? The accepted practices, the Alter Rebbe brings a Shulchan, we don't take cold showers because of a concern, and we just mentioned that you might come to squeeze the water out of your hair. That's the reason why it's accepted. We don't take cold showers, and therefore there is leeway for someone who is in a predicament, someone who's in a very difficult situation, extremely uncomfortable, miserable, and they feel they need to wash themselves. There can be a leniency for cold showers. I'm not giving you the leniency to take home now and just use it at your discretion. I'm just saying if there is such a leniency, if someone is in a situation, you talk to Rav, or if you feel 1,000% confident, you're 100,000% sure that this you mamish. I'm emphasizing, I don't want sometimes in my experience, you say something in a class, it's taken out of context, people take advantage from that, not advantage like deliberately, but they just misinterpret. If someone is extremely uncomfortable, extremely miserable, and mamish, they're just not functioning, there's a leniency to take a cold shower. But not just, I don't feel so good, Don't just take advantage of any situation. I want to take a cold shower. So there can be sometimes leniencies to take a cold shower on Shabbos and Yom Tov. However, you need to be careful with your hair. Best thing is, if you're going to be doing it, don't make your hair wet. I mean, if that's assuming that the hair is not the issue, If you do make the hair wet for whatever reason, usually when people are uncomfortable, it's not. I don't know. I shouldn't judge. I don't know. Whatever the case is, if you're going to if the hair will get wet, you got to be careful that you take the towel and you don't put pressure. You don't scrub. You could take the towel like this. You put it over your head like this. You go like that. You could put your hand against your towel against the hair, and you could move it in different directions. You could move the towel because the towel gets wet, then use another then use another part of the towel, use another part of the towel, but you can't go like that. Then we have a prohibition which is called moiled. You're not allowed to create something. You're not allowed to do something that gives the impression of creation, of creating something new that didn't exist before. Which is, you cannot crush ice on Shabbos. If you take ice and you crush it, is that in the category of methodic extracting if you crush ice? Is crushing ice in the category of methodic extracting? It's tricky, right? It's like no, it's not. Why not? Extracting the water. Extracting means when you have two separate items, you're extracting one from another. It's one thing. It's not. But rabbinically, it's prohibited because the Rebbe says it's similar to work. It looks like you're doing work on Shabbos. It gives an impression like you're creating water. I mean, creating like Hashem created. We don't mean that, but it looks like you are, quote unquote, creating water. The water didn't exist before until now it was ice. Now you're creating water. It looks like you're doing malacha, and this can lead to other things that people get the wrong impression. So they prohibit us to take ice and crush it. For that matter, also take snow and crush it. Take the snow and crush it. What you could do is what they did allow us is to take the ice and put it inside your soda. Even though the ice will melt in your soda, but that's not your that's not your intention. That's it. But because it's not visible, it's not prohibited. It's prohibited because of the impression that it gives. Being it's not visible, you don't see it dissolving, it's okay. Because remember, it's not the dissolving is not the prohibition in itself. It is, but it's when it's prohibited because it gives an impression like you're creating something. So it's only when you actually visualize that action where it's being dissolved, it's being crushed. When it's not visible, it's dissolving inside your drink, that's not prohibited. There's actually an opinion that says you're even allowed to crush it, that once it's in the water, you could put your hand inside and crush it. There is such an opinion, but the Rebbe says you should be strict and not take this leniency. But there is such an opinion that says you could crush it while it's inside the water. What about taking ice out of the freezer or take anything that's frozen for the purpose of dissolving? There's different opinions. Some people say it's okay because you're not physically crushing it. You just doesn't discuss taking food out of the freezer. There's no freezers those days. They discuss taking something that's frozen and putting it in a warm place in the sun. One opinion says it's okay because you're not doing it yourself. You're not physically doing it. The Rebbe says the halach is it's okay. It's not prohibited, but the proper thing is to be strict and not to take frozen liquid and put it in a warm place, not to take frozen stuff out of the freezer and taking it out of the freezer with intention that it should melt, it should dissolve. So the proper thing, though it's not prohibited, the proper thing is that one should be strict and not to take something frozen out of the freezer and taking out of the freezer with intention it should sit and melt and dissolve. One should not do that. Many times people take ice out of the freezer and they put ice on the table. People put ice into the liquid. What category does that go into? That's already a far less severe category because you're not with intention that it should dissolve. That's not your intention. Intention is to use it. You will be causing it to dissolve. The intention is not that it should dissolve. You take out the freezer. There's one thing you take out something frozen, you want it to dissolve. You take out the ice, you don't want it to dissolve, but it's going to dissolve. So here, halachically, it's not a problem. You could take ice out of the freezer and put it on your table, but you'll see many people that are strict, and what they'll do is they'll put it into water. So just be aware, it's a good thing to do, not an absolute requirement. It's like if you don't do it, you're transgressing Shabbos, but it's a nice thing to do. You know, it's a better way to do it. It's not prohibited. It's a better way that when you do take ice out of the freezer, put it inside water. It's like this: when it dissolves, it's dissolving inside the water. Using soap is similar category to crushing ice, because when you use soap, you're causing it to dissolve, it's causing it to melt. That's why we don't use soap on Shabbos, because when you're scrubbing the soap, it's a bar, it's solid, and you're causing it to dissolve. So it's the same idea like crushing ice, and it's the same also like salt. Not so practical, but some people will take salt and they will use it to clean their hands. It takes away grease. Remember, when I was a child, we used to use it on Pesach, because we didn't use anything else. We didn't want to use, we were strict not to use anything else, so we used salt, like to rub your hands and clean your hands. Because with hot water and salt, it melts and it removes grease for washing dishes. But in any case, to take salt and rub it together till it dissolves is also prohibited. So we don't use a bar of soap, so we use liquid soap. Liquid soap, and liquid soap is permitted. So liquid soap, there is a stringency not to use liquid soap, because liquid soap also has some density to it. And when you rub it, it becomes looser. So liquid soap is also an issue. So the way to do it with liquid soap is to put it inside the water. You put it into water. Some say it's better to put it in before Shabbos. Halachically, you could put the liquid soap into the water on Shabbos. It's like putting ice cubes into water on Shabbos. It's the same idea, pretty much. So halachically, you could put the liquid soap into the water. Right? I remember seeing that those that are strict to do it before Shabbos. Halachically, it's not an issue. If you put the liquid soap, so when you're washing dishes, let's say Shabbos, the water's pouring into the pots and there's all the cutlery inside the pots. And then as the water's filling up, the liquid soap, let the liquid soap fall into the water, so it's dissolving into the water, so you have some soapy water, cleans the dishes a little better. As we're talking about dishes, a good idea that helps, that's you want to be able to wash dishes on Shabbos, is if you could fill a pot with boiling water before Shabbos. And you can put liquid soap in it before Shabbos also, if you want, might as well. And then cover the pot and it stays hot. It stays hot for a while. You can even cover it with towels if you want. It's an idea. It stays hot. You have hot water with soap in it. And then when you need to wash dishes, you throw it inside and keep it there for a minute or two, not too long. You keep it there too long, then the water cools off, and then it loses whatever it accomplished by removing the grease. It undoes that. A minute or two, and then you rinse it off with cold water. So that's good advice. My wife doesn't like to say this, so we don't do it, but my idea was like I don't want to have pots sitting with hot water and soap in it on the counter. But if you want to wash dishes good on Shabbos, there's something you could do. There's no issue with that. Prepare before Shabbos.
What malacha is this?
Huh?
What malacha is this soap?
When you're using soap and you're rubbing the soap, if the soap, it's not a malacha. Rabbinically, you cannot crush ice. You cannot use soap, because when you're pressing against the soap, you're causing it to dissolve. Liquid soap, dissolving is rabbinically prohibited because it looks like you're creating something that didn't exist before. Liquid soap is a lower form of that. When you use liquid soap and you're rubbing it, you're also causing it to become looser. But when you put the liquid soap into the water, it dissolves into the water, not a problem.
So it's gonna be a little silly, but like, even that when you're eating food, you can do that. take in some food product and it's all in there.
Okay, but there's a rule, we find it in many situations, even when it comes to separating food. When you separate food before the meal, it's not, many situations, it's not called, doesn't fall under the prohibition of separating, because that's called the way of eating. We're gonna get to that. So things that have to do with eating is not called malacha, it's called eating. Okay, it doesn't apply across the board in every single situation. You can't apply it yourself, but generally speaking, because it's eating, it's not prohibited.
Yeah.
Any questions? Okay. Oh, I mention one more thing, we have time. That is toothbrush. Using a toothbrush on Shabbos, what is the problem? Problem is like using steel one. Because if you make the toothbrush wet and then you brush the teeth, what are you doing? You're squeezing, you're pressing the water out of the bristles of the toothbrush. That's the problem of using a toothbrush on Shabbos.
I thought that applied.
If you bleed, then for sure you can't do it. Now, what you could do is, even though you can't use a toothbrush, you can make your mouth wet, fill it up with water or with mouthwash, and spit out the water. And then brush your teeth with a dry toothbrush, which is not going to be dry now because it's going to get wet because you wet your mouth, and that's okay. Yeah.
You should spit out the mouthwash, 'cause I mean, I've been putting mouthwash in.
Right, another
the
class,
toothbrush
I
and
know
you're
we
like,
came up here somewhere else about what about leaving the mouthwash?
in and then-
Yeah, the question came up here, I just meant it on a practical level, but if you want to keep it inside, it shouldn't be a problem. You want to keep it in there. You can't really keep it in there anyways in such a strong way. I mean, you keep it in there where it's not a problem. Bottom line is, if you want to keep it in there, it shouldn't be a problem. Yeah, but you're not wetting the toothbrush.
I don't know, I use a Shabbos toothbrush that I got from like. Whatever,
Yeah.
one of those places, and then.
How could you keep it in there when you stick the toothbrush inside your mouth,
It's a
opens up and
method.
comes out?
You
If you
keep
tip your
mouth
whole
shut.
head back.
You keep your mouth shut. You have to put your hand in the phone. Wait, I think.
And when the toothbrush go, one second. And
Yeah.
so let me make myself clear. If you have a way to stick a toothbrush into your mouth and your mouth is full of liquid, that's gonna happen.
Cause that was burn through.
It's hard to say, it might be a problem. The point is you can't wet the toothbrush before you put it in your mouth. So if your
Yeah,
method is
right, and
is so professional that when you're putting it into your mouth, it's going through the liquid, then it's an issue.
Okay. So you should spit it out then.
Yeah, I mean, I was thinking when you spit it, when you keep it inside, but you're not really keeping, with half of it's coming out anyway, so I figured it's not. But if it's going through liquid, so you cannot wet the toothbrush first. And your toothbrush, when it comes to your teeth, has to come dry. It can be moist, that's not a problem, but it can't be full, can't like wet it where it's full of liquid, because then you're squeezing it out.
Okay.
So there's no issue of grinding them?
Grinding?
Yeah.
What
or
are you
like
grinding?
smoothing? Like,
There's
if
no
you have anything
grinding.
on your teeth, they're
You're not grinding.
amazing.
There's no grinding. If you don't bleed, you don't usually bleed, and you make your mouth wet before you spit out liquid using a dry toothbrush, there's no problem. I'll tell you another trick. What about floss? Could you floss?
Not if you don't.
Generally, if you don't bleed. Now, if you don't bleed, means you don't usually bleed. You cut the floss before Shabbos. That's what I do. I cut floss before Shabbos, got it to the habit.
Makes little flossers.
Okay, I use regular floss, but I'm in the habit of cutting the floss before Shabbos,
Okay, I asked my dentist.
right? Because you cannot cut floss on Shabbos, that's a problem. You cut it before Shabbos,
You also
So-
find, I think it would be the floss, like I have a permanent retainer on like a couple teeth here, there's the floss, like, it looks like it's like sewing, kind of, you know what I'm talking about?
what kind of sewing?
It's not actually sewing, it's special floss because there's a retainer, so regular floss will like, I don't know, penetrate between the teeth. They make this floss, it's like regular floss, and one end is a bit stronger, it's like plastic maybe, and you put it like through the hole. And then, it looks like sewing, but it's floss and it's for your teeth. Like, if these are your teeth. you put it-
Right, but the point is,
But
you're not leaving it this way.
Sorry.
I'm explaining, the reason why it's not in the category of sewing, because you're not gonna leave it. this
Oh,
way.
no, take it out.
It's totally in and out,
Yeah,
so that's why it's not
so
an
it's
issue.
also fine, that's fine.
No problem, yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
The shoulders.
Oh, look, you got your necklace?
No, the house, Allison bought me another one.
Let's see. What up?
Well,